Okay, thank you, everyone. Tonight's Dine Learn is sponsored anonymously. Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you much for organizing it. So we're learning Hilchos Nedarim in the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch Simin Samech Zayin. This week I thought we would talk about the exact opposite of Nedarim, but Bli Neder. When is it appropriate to say Bli Neder? We all know, we hear it very often, we say it ourselves, but it's not always clear when we should and when we shouldn't. And there are two very good reasons, very good times to say Bli Neder. The first is when you don't want a neder, or when you shouldn't want to make a neder, so you don't accidentally do it. You should say Bli Neder. And the third is when it's not obvious that you are making a neder and you don't want to do it accidentally. So rather than do it accidentally, you say Bli Neder to make sure. If you did want to make a neder, then you would. You're saying Bli Neder to make it clear that you're not.
Can you give examples?
Of course. Don't worry about it. We'll be much more clear as we go forward. So first of all, as you see, we discussed it last week, and it's a little bit, and it's clear in the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, it's clear in all the poskim, and it's a machlokes in the Gemara, the Tanaim and Amoraim. Is it good to make a neder? Is it not? And the answer is, the conclusion is, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Generally speaking, it's very bad to make a neder. So when you say, even if you don't make a neder, if you say you're going to do something, you're obligated to keep your word. We're honorable people, we're gentlemen, gentlewomen, and we keep our words. The Torah says, whatever comes out of your mouth, you're supposed to keep. That's one. A neder, neder is even stronger, and shvuah is even stronger than a neder. Now, a neder we take very seriously. We don't vow, we don't take oaths, we don't swear, to the point where the Gemara says, Ba'avon nedarim banim mesim. Not even going to translate that. That's serious stuff, serious business. We don't take it lightly. That's why we try to avoid nedarim whenever possible. The Kitzer starts off saying, "Al tihi ragil ben nedarim." Don't become accustomed to taking nedarim. Kol noder ki luboner bama b'shas eser bamos. If you take a neder, it's as if you brought a forbidden sacrifice on a bama, on an altar, and even if you keep it, v'makayma ki hikriv olav korban. It's even worse if you keep it. And shvuah also. However, there are times when you should take a neder, when it's good. And when is it good? When you want to do a mitzvah. And you want to encourage yourself, because we take nedarim so seriously, because we take shvuah so seriously, to encourage yourself to do that extra mitzvah, you take the neder, you take the shvuah, and then you're definitely going to do it because we're scared of nedarim, we're scared of shvuahs. That's considered a neder zeros, shvuahs zeros, to encourage yourself. And when it comes to giving to tzedakah, that's even better. And as we'll see in a minute, it's actually very easy to take a neder or a shvuah when it comes to tzedakah or doing a mitzvah. So the first case of when you would say Bli Neder is when you might accidentally say a neder and you don't want to. And when don't you want to? When you shouldn't. When it's not a mitzvah, when it's not tzedakah, you don't want to take a neder. You want to avoid it all possible. As we said last week, even if you don't use Shem Hashem in the neder shvuah, even if you don't use the word neder, shvuah, vow, oath, it still can be a neder shvuah because of all these extra types of nedarim, kinui, a yod. So because of that, if you say in any way that you promise to do something, that could also be a neder. So you should say, if you ever use words of committal, I promise to do it, so you should say Bli Neder to avoid doing it. And Mr. Hashem, before the end of the evening, we'll hopefully explain how to say Bli Neder. It's not so simple. Most of us, including myself, do it wrong very often. So when it comes to doing a mitzvah, though, it's even easier to take a neder accidentally. There's a contradiction in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch in Siman Reish Gimel, the very beginning of Hilchos Nedarim, says, Ha'omer, Eshne Perik Zeh. You're saying, I'm going to learn this Perik of Gemara, or Tanakh. So I'm going to learn this chapter. Ve'yare Shemi Yisrael Shel B'Dover, and you're scared. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll get lazy. Shari Le Leminder, Lizruze Nafshe. You're allowed to take a neder to encourage yourself, because then you won't be lazy because you're scared of nedarim. Okay, that's Reish Gimel. Meaning, if you say you're going to do a mitzvah, you're allowed to take a neder to encourage yourself. Seems normal, seems fine. Reish Yud Gimel, 10 simanim later, the Shulchan Aruch says, Ha'omer Eshne Perik Zeh, same language. You say, I'm going to learn this Perik. Havi Ki'ilu Nadar, let's say it's the tzedakah. That itself is like a neder. Just saying that you're going to learn that Perik is a neder. So it's a stira. In the beginning, he said, you're allowed, if you say, I'm going to learn this parak, you're allowed to take a neder to encourage yourself. Here he says, it is a neder. You don't have to take a neder. You don't have to use the word neder, promise, shua. Say, I'm going to learn this parak. Boom, that's a neder, and you're chayiv. So the two ways of understanding the Shulchan Aruch. The Shach and Siman Reish Gimel says, no, anytime you say you're going to do a mitzvah, that's a neder. You don't have to use neder, you don't promise. If you say, I'm going to do a mitzvah, you reply to the wedding invitation saying, I'm going to go to the wedding, mitzvah of simchas, chasan, vekala, you are taking a neder to go to the wedding. It's a big deal. Very nogeya lamaisa, very practical. Shach says that, and he brings proofs. Afilu b'dibur b'alma she'omar eshne havi alei chiyuv neder. No, if you just say simply, I'm going to learn this parak, I'm going to do this mitzvah, that's a neder. Kedul kaman, siman reish gimel sebeis, v'chen posak, Rabbeinu Yerucham, v'hasmag, v'shar poskim. It's a big deal. The Birkei Yosef and siman reish gimel disagrees. He says, no. See, the Shach seems to be favoring the second language of the Mechaber, of the Shulchan Aruch, saying the first one is lav dafka. The Birkei Yosef says the exact opposite. No, the first language is what he really meant. It's not a neder. You have to take a neder. If you take a neder, then it has an obligation of a vow. So that's the Birkei Yosef on the side of the Shulchan Aruch says like that. So who do we passing by? It's a machlokes. Who do we passing by? So now that we have a blossoming Sephardic community, I'll quote a Sephardic posek, Reb Mordechai Eliyahu. He has a tshuva on the subject in his tshuva's Maimer Mordechai's Chelik Beis. He says we seem to paskin like the Shach, which is important.
Wasn't he when he says we seem? That means
he says should be machmir like the Shach.
Not we seem. When he says we, is he applying it to the Sephardim only, to the general?
Oh, he's saying to everybody, and in fact, the Kitzur says it. He says it. At the end of Sif Dalet. So he's talking about learning at the beginning. It says Daito likbo lo ezer limud batorah lasos ezer mitzvah. Right? He's talking about you're saying you want to do a mitzvah or learn a certain amount of Torah. Vafilu im lo amar bilshon neder o shvua ela bedibur be'alma. Even if you don't say language of neder shvua, you just say the words havi neder umechuyev lakayim. It's the Kitzur. Ben Ish Chai says similarly. So that's why Mordechai Eliyahu paskins that is an obligation. So anytime you say you're going to do a mitzvah, you should say bli neder. If you're not saying, if you're just saying, I'm going to clean out my closet, that's not a mitzvah, you don't have to say bli neder. Some people say bli neder no matter what. And that's an abuse. All right. So it's dikas chametz. So, okay, so that's also a mitzvah. So anytime you're saying a mitzvah, you should try to do bli neder, unless you actually mean a neder, because you're allowed to, in these cases, you're allowed to make a neder. So it's easy for the neder to be chal, so for the oath to take on form. So then you should say bli neder.
So my question is this: then let's say you commit yourself, one commits themselves to the entire Sabbath, right? And he doesn't fulfill it. Is he over the law? Does he violate the neder? Although he tried his Herculean way to do it.
So if you take a neder and you can't because of some sort of onus, coercive, extenuating circumstances. So the general practice is you do hataras nadarim. You try to undo the neder. Now, does Hashem hold you liable for onus on a neder? Yeah.
I'm not saying whether. I'm not questioning. I mean, that's the obvious theme that I think the Magish here is presenting. But my question is, for something that seems to be as a tool to inspire people to do mitzvahs, and for whatever reason it can't be mekoyim that mitzvah. I mean,
if you can't fulfill a neder is serious business. Don't take a neder.
No, but you're not taking the neder though. You don't see the verbiage. And I say I see in the stuff brachas. I want to learn brachas. It's all an example, right? But I can't for whatever reason. But I mean, is there a time limit on a neder? Is there? Because if I say I'll get to it.
So there's no time limit on it. But there's a time limit on us. So it's advisable to say bli neder. It is advisable, and if you didn't know, if you do hataras nadarim. The fact that you didn't know is a very good Pesach, an opening for hataras nadarim. No. You have to specify the neder if you know about it.
Is there anything that's not a mitzvah? Then you don't say
Then if you take the language of neder, so neder or shvua falls on anything. If you use that language, promise, I swear, I commit, that's all neder shvua. But if you say I'm going to clean my closet, so that's you don't say bli neder.
Where's the bli neder used again? When
If you say
you're not supposed to say bli
I
neder.
promise I'm going to clean my closet,
Right.
you would add a bli neder to that.
Only if you say it in those.
If you use a language that could be construed as a neder. If it's to do a mitzvah, so then even if it's not language, that could be construed as a neder.
The marriage vow,
That's not a vow. That's not a neder.
it's not a nether.
No, Christians have a vow. They take vows.
So if it's
We
not a
don't.
nether, that means it's not binding?
There are other reasons things could be binding,
Well,
but there are certain conditions involved in the entire. I won't say transaction because it's not really a transaction, but in the entire. No, you makabel kinyan to bring chashivos, to bring importance to this. It's not a.
It's not a transaction with the wife?
No, you don't own the wife. The Nesiv has a tshuva on this. The Nesiv has a tshuva on whether you own a wife. Some rabbi wrote an article that's saying that you own your wife, and the Nesiv says that's crazy. That's against Chazal. Chazal say if you have a slave, so then anything he owns you own. With a wife, there's a special takana of Chazal that you own whatever your wife is kona, so there's no fight in the marriage, and you could undo that. If she says I don't want it from you, you could say I don't want it from her, and then you could undo it. If you owned her, it couldn't be undone. So you don't own your wife. There's no transaction.
I was wondering, what does the makabel kinyan mean when you hold the map?
But there are obligations that transfer back and forth, and those obligations, that's what the kinyan is for.
So if it's a kinyan, it's not a never.
Okay. It's not a kinyan in her guf. It's a kinyan in chiyuvim, in obligations.
In the marriage itself.
Right, obligations from the husband to the wife.
In the end of Sif Dalit, earlier, it says here by, let's say, Tvil Shiav Adam Sassim, like an appeal for Master's Tvar Shash, you should even say that. Is that what he said?
If you use languages like promise and commit, that's what I think he means. So tzedakah is even stronger. We in our shul, after you get an aliyah on Shabbos, you take a mishaberach, so when you promise, generally speaking, give matana, give $18, give $180, give $1,800. So is that a neder? Is that not a neder? So the fact is, not only is it a neder, you can go even further. So in the Shulchan Aruch and Choshen Mishpat, so the Mechaber brings two languages, two opinions. If you think about giving tzedakah, making hekdesh, giving something to the Beis HaMikdash, according to one opinion, if you think and you decide in your mind, I'm going to do it to give this cow to the Beis HaMikdash, I'm going to donate this beautiful becher, this beautiful silver tray to the Beis HaMikdash, even if you think it, it's a conclusion in your mind, you're obligated. That's a neder. That's one opinion. The second opinion is no, you have to say it. And the Mechaber concludes that everybody agrees, B'zman hazeh, we have no Beis HaMikdash, that you have to say it, tzedakah, in order for it to be binding. The Ramah says no, Minhag is like the first opinion. Even if you think tzedakah, you're going to give tzedakah, that's a neder. And he says it again in Hilchos Tzedakah. The Ramah says it. Says there's one opinion that if you think you're going to give tzedakah, that's binding. Hold on a minute. And second opinion is it's not binding unless you say it. And the Ramah says, here's what he says. He says, "V'ha'ikar kisvara harishona." No, we follow the first opinion, and the first opinion is im chashav belibo litin ezed davar l'tzedakah. If you thought in your mind, in your heart, that you're going to give something to tzedakah, chayev l'kayim machshavto. You have to fulfill what you thought. Vein sarich amira, and you don't have to say it. Ella dim amar, but if you do say it, kofi no salakayim, then we can force you. But either way, klap ishmaya, to heaven, you're obligated to fulfill that conclusion. So it's easy to be OCD on this. And people who are very nervous can get extra nervous about this. So I'm just warning that it's only if you think conclusively. Not you think maybe I'll give $100, maybe I'll give $200, maybe I'll give $1,000. You're not obligated to anything unless you think in your mind, I'm going to give $1,000. And then the next day, then you go home, you talk to your wife, and your wife says, hold on a minute, I'm saving up for the new window frame or window whatever. So it's too late.
That's what we discussed last week. There are always surprise, extenuating circumstances that could pop somebody's wishes and ideas to contribute or make.
Right. So then the question is, can you be mati the neder to give to tzedakah? So the answer is, if someone was rich and they lost a lot of money in the stock market, So they could be matir neder, but the chachamim are not allowed to be matir entirely. You still have to give something. But you still have to do hataras nedarim because the neder is chal. You're obligated, even if you think it. So here's what I do. I think, bli neder, I'm going to give $1,000. Bli neder, I'll give $1,500.
In your head.
You have to think bli neder. Because otherwise, it's literally, al pi halacha, you're obligated.
Well, it can't be matineder in your head then also.
Yeah, okay, so I could get 3 chachamim and I'll say, here's what I...
Exactly. I mean, that's
No.
Yeah,
And they go,
let's hear it.
yeah, well.
Right, exactly. It's like,
Doesn't work
because
that way.
I
No.
So when
No.
a person makes a neder, right? Don't they make a declaration in front of Adam? You know, it's all process. But
Neder could be
neder
could be alone in your bedroom. You make a neder. You're obligated. It's between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's in your heart. So when it comes to tzedakah is such an obligation. So even if you think conclusively you're going to give a certain amount, so you're obligated unless you do hataras nedarim.
But
a
you
lot
have
of
to
people do it conditionally.
You have to.
I mean, they
So normally with a condition you have to say the condition.
No.
But if you're thinking, so the condition was there. It was moving around in my head.
No, but people say, for example, if I win the lottery, I want to give so much and so much to that guy.
Oh, so that was good. You said the condition first, and then you said what you're going to give. That's the right way to do it. First you say the condition, and then you're going to say, I'm going to give, because in the neder, once you say it, or to tzedakah, once you say it, it's chal. Don't do the condition after. Which gets to the
What is
the final point.
Mir Hashem, I mean, it's totally different. Do you stick it in these type of situations? Or?
So what I do is when I reply to a wedding, I say, I plan to attend. Because that's true. Even though I don't attend, I planned on attending. So I will go in Mir Hashem, or Mir Hashem I will go.
Mir Hashem, that's not the right. I mean, I've seen that, right?
So is that the same as bli neder? You're saying is Emir Hashem the same as bli neder? Possibly? I don't know.
If you don't go, it wasn't Hashem's will.
Yeah, we could say that about any of If I don't go to shul, that's also wasn't Hashem's
But the
will.
example you gave about RSVPing, if I say I will Emir Hashem attend, and I then decide I'm not going to go, do I need to be machineder? I can't just call the host and say I changed my mind.
Hashem stopped me.
It's a mitzvah to go. So you said you'd do a mitzvah, so you got to be careful. You got to be careful. And taking a neder in writing is neder in writing is also chal. That's a neder also. If you can think a neder, certainly you can write a neder. So the question is, how do you say bli neder? So there's a Tosfos in Beitza that says if you're going to be makdish a behema to the Beis Hamikdash, you have to make any conditions before you say this behema is for the Beis Hamikdash. Because once you say this behema is for the Beis Hamikdash, conversation ends. It's too late. No time for conditions. So based on this, Mordechai Eliyahu says, it's in the footnote here, footnote Gimel, here, it says, Yomar bli neder eten kach v'kach. Bli neder, I will give this and that. V'lo Yomar eten kach v'kach bli neder. Don't say, I will give bli neder. Because then it's too late. Once you say you're going to give, you can't say bli neder. Afilu she'omer bli neder toch chedei dibur. Even if you say immediately in the same breath, it's too late. So when you get and I don't always do this right. I admit, I try to do better. I strive to do better. So at the Mishaberach, when you say you're going to promise it. Don't say matana bli neder. You say bli neder matana, or even more, even better. Bli neder $1,000.
The trick is not to correct it,
The Gaboim, close your ears.
Right. You gotta.
You say Elev or Ellen?
So next week we'll talk about if you take a neder shvua with God's name in English, or in Polish, or in Russian, or in German, is that a neder? And maybe we'll talk a little bit about using Hashem's name in other languages, and does it work or does it not work? It's a big machlokas. So, thank you very much. Have a good night.